All right, I told everyone last year that I was going to bring this back looking like an LMP car, and here it is. And I think it really looks like an LMP car now. Over the last year, what I've worked on is I've refined the fenders, done some of the body work, got it painted, and the big focus was to get the fenders mounted the way they need to be relative to the tire, get them rigidly mounted, add a little bit of flare on them, and then add the inboard side of the fenders to tie them back into the body to really make it a full car instead of just having the fenders kind of floating out like cycle fenders like they were last year. Did all that for the body work, and then did a lot of aero work. Worked with members of the forum community to talk about some of the members of the forum work in NASCAR, work in racing on legitimate aerodynamic projects. So I worked with them, talked to them, used their resource to develop easy to produce stuff I could make in my garage that is real functional aero. And so the car has a lot of real functional aero that I put on it this year. It's got underbody under trays that have tunnels that run from the front of the car to the back, so all the aero that comes in undisturbed under the front wing goes around the center chassis in a tunnel and feeds the diffusers. The diffusers are about 4 feet long, and their expansion, they're about 20 inches tall at the end, and all that volume of air is coming around the car from the front through a tunnel. So that's going to give it a fair amount of downforce in the under tray. Built a multi-element rear wing that's mounted high on the car to keep it in nice clean air. The main cord, it's about a 16-inch deep cord on the main wing with a second element. It's a real shape, it's real sizes, and it really does work. The front wing element, same thing. It's all made out of plywood, and it's flat on the bottom with a kicked up taper at the back. And again, it simulates a airfoil that's appropriate for approximately 4 to 6 inches off the ground, which is what the front of this car is. And it's mounted on a removable bracketry that I take 4 bolts out, and the entire front wing comes off the car. That way I can load it on the trailer, and it just makes it easier to deal with. If it was permanently attached, I'd have to have really long ramps. So this simple to remove made it way easier to make and function. The rear wing is made out of just aluminum, round tubing in the front, and then a piece of 1x, and I just wrapped it with aluminum, and that made the rear wing. The rear elements are just a smaller version of the same design. And all the underbody aero is pink home insulation. With the perimeter of the aero is a cedar fence picket that I cut down on a table saw. Just cut it to about a 1-inch strip, glued that to the end of the foam. So my kind of construction is a piece of foam with a perimeter of the cedar fence picket, and then all that's wrapped in just single layer of epoxy resin in a cloth. And so it's basically built similar to how you'd wrap a cedar canoe, and that made them strong and light. Like I said, those rear diffusers are about 4 feet long, about 24 inches at one end square, and they weigh about 2.5 pounds, and they're rigid enough that they have survived. I actually did have an issue with the pull rod where one corner of the suspension had an issue on my first autocross run at the event, and the car landed on the aero elements and drove for a little ways that way, and everything was strong enough that I didn't have to do any repairs to the aero. It's a little scratched up, obviously has some paint work that needs to be touched up on the aero, but overall it was rigid enough to survive cone strikes and stuff like that. So the design it's cheap, but it functions, and it's as robust as it needs to be to make the aero work. I also added a long fin like the LMP cars have, and then the fixed roof. That's all fiberglass. So this was my first time using fiberglass, was the parts of this car, and it was a new learning experience, but that's what you need to do with a car like this and with projects, is challenge yourself to learn new things. Without it, you'll never get to where you can build something like this or any project without doing the little things first. And I was uncomfortable doing it, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I gave it a try and kind of refined the technique as I built the car, and I'm pretty pleased with how the fiberglass parts all turned out. My intention is to bring the car to the UTCC next year, so it's probably the last year it's going to run at the $2,000 challenge. I'm going to go out and go insane and spend about $800 on it and put the rims. I've got some RFP1 rims that I've used at Autocross Nationals. It's got a FIA fuel cell, you know, between the two. That actually takes it up to about $3,300 with just those two items. And then I'll do a little bit more stuff to refine it, just, you know, make it a little bit nicer. But overall, the car's gonna run, you know, I'm gonna run it the way it is, as in essence the $2,000 challenge car. Just get it out and use it, because as my goal of the build at the beginning is I didn't want to build a one-trick pony. You know, I've already taken it this year, Autocross SCCA Nationals, where I ran it in A-Mod, and you know, it obviously running on the tires it's on now, it didn't do incredibly well, but it did not get last in class, which I was very pleased with. And you know, it just overall to be able to have a car, you know, that you build for $2,000 that looks like this and that performs the way this does, is, you know, really proud of the effort I was able to put in, and get it working as good as it is, and you know, just really happy with how it's turned out. You know, everyone's been really supportive of seeing it. You know, really liked it. Thought it was, you know, a really nice looking thing, and it's really been a great event and a great project to work on.
Support brands that support Grassroots Motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. Visit crcindustries.com to learn more.